Well, you remember a while back, investors wrote off Barnes & Noble. This is when Elliott took the company private back in 2019 and then appointed a new CEO, James Daunt. But Daunt's strategy is now working. Plans to open 60 stores in the U.S. this year, and a lot of talk out there about a potential IPO sometime soon. Joins us now here in Studio 2, the CEO of Barnes & Noble, James Daunt. Great to have you.
Pleasure.
So you've had a long career in book selling with your own line of bookstores named after you. Then you took over a business over there in the UK, and now Barnes & Noble got folded into that. Books, physical books, I thought they were dead.
Nope, they're not dead at all.
What happened along the way to this death march? Because it seemed for a while we were either reading everything on e-readers or not reading at all. And then it seemed like not only were people gravitating back to paper, but they were gravitating back to the actual physical bookstores. So not just buying paper books, off of Amazon or somewhere else, but actually going into the bookstores and looking for that experience. What happened?
I think people hadn't stopped reading physical books. I think the narrative had got slightly muddled, but the real problem was they weren't buying them in physical bookstores. And that was, I think, because the stores actually, frankly, had lost their way a bit. They'd lost their confidence, and they weren't fun enough. They weren't enjoyable places enough to be in. So sales started dropping, and then they started closing stores, and obviously Borders went bankrupt, and the whole thing got a bit dicey.
But I remember when the chains really became popular, Borders, Books A Million, Barnes & Noble. I mean, there were spaces to hang out. Like, you went there to buy your books or your magazines or whatever, but you hung out there, and I assume that drove sales. What was the strategy shift that happened at Barnes & Noble where people stopped treating a Barnes & Noble store as a place to hang out?
Well, I wasn't here, so
I know. I'm not blame. I'm just curious.
But when I turned up here in 2019, the stores were very uniform. They were identikit, and actually, if you do that, they become sort of uniformly less interesting. And then they were full of an awful lot of things that shouldn't have been in there, things that didn't make sense in a bookstore, which they were selling plenty of. Warm water, Duracell batteries. It became a sort of a mix of strange other retailers. Quite a lot of CVS in it. And that's out of there now, and we're first and foremost books. But then we sell quite a lot around books, but things that make sense in a bookstore. Vinyl records, DVDs, newsstand, and a certain amount of toys and games and things, and that makes sense. And also we just liberated the stores to have fun. And if you allow the stores to have fun, all the kids come in, as you say, school's over, bang, they become great meeting places. And then all ages are in, and then your sales start going up, and everything starts getting rosier again.
What is the strategy for creating fun? Is it about, adding more couches, adding, a Starbucks in there that people can come to? How do you manufacture an environment where people can really enjoy themselves?
Above all, you let the store team decide what to do in their store, because every community is different, every place is different, and we liberated them from central control. We said, treat it like it's your name that's above the door. Have fun with your teams, build up really good bookstores, and we're not going to tell you how to do that beyond the principles attached to it. No rules, common sense, have fun.
Speaking of fun, it's interesting to see TikTok, Gen Z readers. There's all this talk of, Gen Z doesn't read as much, but then you look at something like Book Talk, and actually there's a lot of young people talking about all the different kinds of genres. One that's gotten a lot of attention is romantasy, romantic, fantasy books. Is that driving sales? How is that genre specifically, generating foot traffic and sales at Barnes & Noble?
That genre is fantastic. And we have Sarah J. Maas and Rebecca Yarros and a lot of other really big authors. Queues out the door for the opening of the launch of the book at midnight kind of thing. Real fun attached to it. But right now, our best-selling book is by an author called Homer. And that's what that generation is also reading. And they latched onto the classics before they went into romantasy. They were reading Jane Austen, they were reading George Eliot. They're reading really good books, or they're reading fun books, or they're reading fantasy and romantasy. But they're reading and they're having fun around books.
But does your business model, does it depend on kind of having these tentpole moments, whether it's, a big movie like Odyssey or a romantasy, a novel capturing everyone's attention?
Yeah, but we have that going on all the time. And as you, I thought rather unfairly said, I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
40 plus years. And for 40 years, pretty much month in, month out, there is a big book that explodes because people love talking about books, communing around books, and they love discovering new. And that's been true all my career. And it remains ever as now and across the country as well.
I mean, you've been running Waterstone. Barnes & Noble, of course, got put under your umbrella in 2019. I think a lot of people saw it, investors, potential investors, saw that as a turnaround story. When I look at the number of stores, 700 Barnes & Noble roughly here in the U.S. and 300-something stores overseas and in the U.K., is there a growth story there? Are you growing the number of stores? And if so, how do you justify that?
Well, we're opening lots of stores. We opened 60 last year, 60 the year before that, and we're opening 60 again this year, or roughly a little bit more than 60. And I would assume we will carry on doing that, partly because so many stores have closed, of course. Barnes & Noble closed lots. There's no Walden Books. There's no Borders. There's no B. Dalton. There are lots and lots of communities in America. I mean, really thousands of communities without bookstores.
And are those the areas that you're primarily focused on?
That's where we're going.
Yeah.
And independents are doing so as well. We're opening lots of stores. Indies are opening even more stores. So it's a really exciting time for book selling.
I wonder how much of that is just based on the fact that a bookstore is one of those almost final frontiers of a brick and mortar place that you actually want to be in versus other types of goods you don't necessarily want to go and smell like batteries, like you said. There's something cozy about a bookstore. Is that why so many are opening?
I think it's definitely that, but it's also that it appeals to all ages. The smallest baby in a pushchair really likes being in a bookstore, to the oldest citizen and everybody in between. They appeal to everybody, and then across most demographics as well. Bookstores are really great places for everybody to enjoy.
But are people reading more? Because, I mean, I understand there's always going to be this core group of people that are reading. But, I mean, when you look at statistics, at least here in the U.S., I mean, there's all kind of stats about how, the majority of people in this country haven't opened a book once all year long. So I am curious as to where you find growth. Is it just sort of tapping into that existing customer and getting him or her to come back into the store more and more? Or is there a way to expand the customer base to new people?
I think that this sort of trope that people aren't reading has been going on forever. My parents, when I was about 10, decided I was destined for a life of ignorance and penury because I spent half an hour a day watching TV, black and white TV. I'm that old. And they said, this is the end. You're never going to read. There's no future for you. That's always been going on, and the press likes it. The reality is that people read more, that there is an aspiration around reading. We all want our kids to read. And it's fun for teenagers. And then you probably go through a cycle of life when you're working really hard, when people read less, and then they come back to reading. But the physical book is what endures. Yeah,
but I asked you that too, and I don't know, I mean, what is your relationship with the folks at Elliott? Because there's been a lot of talk about an IPO, and if you do that, I mean, you're going to have to, or you or the other person there's going to have to communicate to investors what that growth story is. I mean, are you prepared to go public anytime soon?
Well, I'm glad to say that that's way above my pay grade, and, and we concentrate on the day-to-day of just running the business. What the bankers get up to.
Yeah, I mean, look, bankers. Yeah, we all hate the bankers. But I mean, come on. But at some point, but you're going to have to. There could be a little, sometimes. But I mean, you're going to have to deal with them if you are a public company. In theory, unless you're going to leave, are you?
In theory, I mean, I hope I will carry on running bookstores unto. I've been doing it for a long time, and one of the great things about being in the United States compared to the United Kingdom is people think I'm quite young here. In fact, the great Warren Buffett will probably be thinking I'm only just barely beginning on my career.
Yeah, and just trust me, man, that British accent, it carries you very far in this country. We're suckers for it, so. Thank you very much, James.
Pleasure.
Thanks to Barnes & Noble CEO James Daunt. Thank you. Good to see you here in person.